Thank you, Jan. I was very glad to be asked to induct Simon and Garfunkel, Art and Paul into the Hall of Fame here. First, before doing that, I want to thank Phil Spector for keeping it green for me, anyway. Thank you. It was sort of. I think we came along in the same time, Simon and Garfunkel and myself. I've always felt as though we were sort of products of the same time. And I felt also a very close connection with and affinity for their music always. And, you know, I've since in the years, that's continued through the years. I still feel that way. And I've had the chance to work with both of them together and both of them separately too. So I'm glad for that reason too, to have been asked to induct them, because they're close friends. The thing that I wanted to say was that I thought that they had expanded Simon and Garfunkel, at least gave me the feeling that there really was very little that couldn't be done musically. You know, I think they really opened up a lot of territory. Their records were so musical and so considered and so carefully and intricately produced. They focused so much on it. You could feel so much energy and so much thought behind it. You know, they were then and they are now great to listen to and just to focus on. They go way back. They grew up within 3 blocks of one another and first met in 1953 at PS 164 in Queens, where Mrs. Repa cast them both in Alice in Wonderland. Art was the Cheshire Cat and Paul was the White Rabbit, of course. They stayed together in high school, went on to junior high together in high school, and started singing together solidly a lot of the time, practicing a lot. The first song, I'm told, that they wrote, although I'm not actually familiar with it, is "The Girl I Love is Standing There." Anyway, in high school, they were swept away too, I believe, by the same thing that was overwhelming all of us, and they went into New York City a lot, came into the city, and made demos at Sanders Recording, and eventually Sid Prosen from Big Records picked them up and released their first single. Also gave him red blazers and white bucks and new names. They were called Tom and Jerry. I think they were allowed to choose their own last names. Tom Graff and I can't remember what the other one is. Oh yeah, Landis, Jerry Landis. That's it. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. There were other names that they went by too. True Taylor, Art Gar. I think that was Art. He dropped the Funkel in that case. And there was also Tico and the Triumphs. You know. But 5 years later, in '63, they got back together again as Simon and Garfunkel, and recorded for Columbia Records Wednesday morning, 3 a.m. That was somewhat of a disappointment for them, I understand, and they drifted apart again. But the company heard news that there was a lot of requests for Sounds of Silence, and they pulled that cut off the album and laminated some other instruments on it, you know, to kind of tart it up, as I heard said earlier here. And yes, tart it up. And that album climbed slowly to the top, became #1 single. And Paul came back from London, where he'd been singing in the streets and other places. And they quickly went to the studio, and in 3 weeks made the Sounds of Silence album. Well, I guess that single was quickly followed by Homeward Bound, I Am a Rock, and that was in 1966. And in 1968, which was also a great year for me and for a lot of us, 4 of the top 5 songs were Simon and Garfunkel, 4 of the top 5 albums, in fact, were Simon and Garfunkel's. Anyway, so like I said, I'm glad to have been asked to induct them into the Hall of Fame. I don't know exactly what that means, and I'm not sure where the hall is. I think maybe if I could get some advice, that maybe the thing to do is to rent a Hall of Fame for a while, not to actually build one right away, you know, see how the thing goes open. Be very tentative about that. You can't be too cautious. Oh, no, Cleveland's the place. Cleveland's the place. Maybe in Cooperstown. Excuse me. Anyway, it's been good of you to put up with me, and I want now to let things roll on, and I want to bring them in. We're gonna take them in now. We're gonna induct them. Here, in they go. They're in to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
I have nothing prepared, but I have a very full heart and a total identification with rock and roll and the history of rock and roll. It's mic height. That's what split up this group. So, although I never felt much of a joiner in any group, I would wear the T-shirt that says rock and roll any day, and have been wearing it most of my life. And I'm very happy that there's going to be this Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I think it's one of the great pockets of genuineness in the American culture. It has my total credibility, and there's not too many of those things around. And I can't tell you how much fun it was to make those records all those years. I want to share the fullness I feel with, you don't have a career without a manager who helps you and gets you touring and puts you on the road, and I have a great sense of sharing this with Mort Lewis. A great sense of sharing it with the guy who was in the studio when we first did our audition record for CBS, and when it all worked so well and they signed us, we said, we love that guy, we want to work with him on every record we make, and we did, and never did a day's work during those Simon and Garfunkel years without Roy Halley. I want to thank God for giving me this voice. It's been a lot of fun having it. And I want to thank most of all the person who has most enriched my life by putting these great songs through me, my friend Paul here.
Well, Arthur and I agree about almost nothing, but it's true, I have enriched his life quite a bit, now that I think about it. Artie had the best voice in the neighborhood. It was SRO at his bar mitzvah, really. He could have done a whole other show and still made it. We fell in love with rock and roll at, when we were 12 years old, 13 years old, when there was one station in New York, WINS. And you used to hear this music. I mean, one song would be Ray Charles, Hallelujah, I Love Her So, and then it would be Johnny Cash, I Walk the Line, and then it would be Frankie Lyman and Why Do Fools Fall in Love, and then Carl Perkins, and then maybe Ruth Brown, or the Moonglows, and the Penguins, and Joe Turner Blues. I mean, a diversity, a rich diversity of music that would be impossible to hear on any format radio today. And so, in a way, we used our imagination to fill in what was the connection between all of this music. And we were so taken with this idea that it became the dominant interest in our lives. And to this day, it's still fascinating. The music, writing music, making records. I'm very grateful that, like, for all of this time in my life, I've never been bored. It's been a thing that sustained both of us. This is really a blessing for us. We used to take the D train. We used to take the D train in from Queens, and we would go and audition for record companies. The E and the F train. Well, you don't have to be so smug about it. And then when we were 15 years old, we made this record. And it became a big hit. Alan Freed played it every night. Cost $200 a week. And the publishing on the next song. We thought it was a great deal. And to this day, I still think it was a very, very good deal. And Thanksgiving Day, 1957, we appeared on American Bandstand. And the kids actually did say, I like it a lot, you can dance to it, I give it a 95. The other act on the show that day was Jerry Lee Lewis. And he was better than us, particular day. That was our only hit in the 50s. And then we had an argument, and we broke up, thereby setting a pattern that we were to reiterate in the years to come. We got back together again in 1964, and Goddard Lieberson signed us to Columbia Records. And we owe Goddard our thanks for that, and also for the fact that he interceded on our behalf and stopped the A&R department at Columbia from naming our group the Catchers in the Rye. And he allowed us to use our real names, something which would have been an impossibility in the 50s for anybody to use names that were so ethnically identifiable as Simon and Garfunkel. We owe Goddard a great deal of thanks for that. Art mentioned our manager Mort Lewis and Roy Halley, sustaining our careers. Mort was smart, he was hip, he managed Dave Brubeck, he introduced us to Paul Desmond, to Lenny Bruce. Couldn't have had a better manager. Roy Halley was a genius, in my opinion. In fact, all our years at Columbia Records were really blissful. Under Clive Davis, and yes, even under Walter Yetnikoff's rule, things were really fine for us. It was, I don't know, it seems like The Sound of Silence, and then Scarborough Fair, and The Graduate, and Mrs. Robinson, and The Boxer, Bridge Over Troubled Water, whoosh, and it was gone, and it was over. And we just walked away from it, actually, like, well, that was one thing that we did, and now we'll go and do another thing. Because we were so young that we didn't realize that that was like the trip of a lifetime that we were on. And aside from the fact that, well, I mean, musically, we always had our differences. We had such a good time together. We used to laugh so much. We loved that we could rent cars and drive to play in colleges and stay at a Holiday Inn and take those towels and stuff them into the cracks of the door and light up those hidden reefers. And maybe the bed had that machine where you could put a quarter in and like be vibrated, and it was great. I was with my oldest and my best friend. I couldn't have had a better time. And then, and then we had an argument. And like once we were riding to the show, and we got into such a screaming argument about the war in Vietnam. One of us was in favor of it. Yeah. We had a big fight about the 11th song on the Bridge Over Troubled Water album. Art wanted to do a Bach fugue, and I wanted to do a song I had written called Cuba See, Nixon No. We compromised, and there was no 11th song on the album. We came back together again in 1981 in Central Park, and was one of the most extraordinary evenings of our lives. But when we walked off stage, I mean, as we finished the last song in the encore, and we walked off on the steps of the set, I turned to Artie and I said, "What do you think? How do we do?" And he said, "Disaster." An overview was never our strong suit.
No, I just didn't think we hit our musical strong standards. That's all. We weren't our standards.
Well, you were absolutely right, of course. There's no question about it. So, how could I be happier than to be inducted into the Hall of Fame with my oldest pal? And we can join those other happy couples, Ike and Tina Turner, the Everly Brothers, Mick and Keith, Paul, and all of the other Beatles. And maybe they'll have a separate wing for all of us, you know. Probably be completed in time for the Eagles to be in. Thank you very much.